Welcome to Shape the Podcast. It's a podcast all about maintaining mental health by sharing stories from those who have overcome negative experiences and feelings, then turned them into something positive. Meet your host.
It's not like me to worry, but when I see you fading in the dark, I'll leave a light on for you. Through the long nights, I will be right there for you to drift too far. I'll leave a light on for you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shape the Podcast. My name is Kyle Waller. Those of you who saw the post earlier today, my co-host, normally, Jason Sewell, is spending time with his daughter and his wife tonight. His daughter shared her story. It's been about a couple months ago in dealing with, some mental health issues. 2 weeks ago, she had an episode, and tomorrow morning she flies out to California to get treatment. So if you would, please keep Jason and Amy and Olivia in your prayers and your thoughts. I would appreciate it, so would they. But yeah, that song, those lyrics were from a great song called "Leave a Light On," which talks about suicide, the things that people don't want to talk about. So yeah, welcome to the podcast, and I just had to open up with that. So sorry that it was a little somber, but it just needed to be done. So I hope you all have had a great couple of weeks. I know that this month has flown by, and everybody's getting ready for July. I have a lot of friends in here watching right now that are going to be with me here next week at an awesome charity event called the World Beard and Mustache Championships, and which is pretty awesome. That's going to be taking place over July 4th weekend. And that's going to be an awesome time. But, man, I have a great guest lined up tonight. This gentleman, it's been over 10 years since I've known him. Probably like 11, 12, probably 13. I'm not really sure. But back when I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, I was going through a rough time in my life. And he was one of those guys that played a very influential part of my life and helped me through it, along with some other awesome individuals. But yeah, I got to know Doug through a thing, a group, a program that everybody, at one time, if they've struggled with any type of addiction, especially alcohol, they've been through this program. But yeah, Doug has worked with some great guys and some great organizations. And so he's going to come on and he's going to share his story. And then he's going to talk about, the organizations that he's helped and that he's worked with. So without further ado, let's bring on my guest, Doug Scott. What's going on, sir? Welcome to the podcast.
Howdy from the holler.
Yes, you're not from your regular location there in Oldham County, Kentucky. You were at your cabin, so
I am. I'm deep in the eastern Kentucky hills here in the foothills of the Appalachians, and tucked back in a holler, and where we barely have Wi-Fi.
Well, it's working. Good thing it's not storming, or else you wouldn't have that Wi-Fi. So yeah. I appreciate you. Well, when I ask you to come on, I appreciate you without hesitation wanting to come on and share. Now, a lot of my followers, a lot of my viewers that are watching right now do not know you because they know me because of the beard. But why don't you introduce yourself to the fine crowd that's watching and then we'll just start from there, man. Start from wherever you want to go.
Yeah, man. Well, that beard has its own like zip code, so its own personality for sure.
Hey.
I've been a fan of the beard journey for quite some time. So my name is Doug Scott, and first of all, Kyle, thank you. I'm honored to spend a little bit of time with you and your guests this evening, and any opportunity that my higher power gives me to connect and communicate and just maybe possibly be a voice of hope or reason for someone. That's a true honor for me.
Yeah.
So, as usual, I gave very little thought about what I was going to talk about and what I was going to go, and I say that in all sincerity, because I really like for things to be organic. I like for it to be authentic and natural, and so you folks will bear with me if I stumble or whatever. But so I'll start kind of a little bit with you about my story. And I can't tell Doug's story without telling the story of Doug's family. And when I was a child, I never really felt like I fit in. I have brothers and sisters that are, or were in this case, several years older than I am. In fact, I was born on my sister's 22nd birthday. My mother had her first and last on the same day, 22 years apart. And then she had 3 boys, 50, 60, and 70. So each of us boys were 10 years apart. And so I share that primarily because while I had brothers and sisters, I grew up as the baby like an only child. Did had some advantages because being the baby is all good, but I had 2 mothers, with my sister being 22 years older than me. And I've heard this comment before, and I think I need to share it, just kind of use it as that. So my family absolutely put the fun in dysfunction. And I want to share because my mother was Native American, mostly, not 100%, but over 50. And she grew up in the Depression, and her family was very poor. And she quit the 8th grade to help raise her children or her brothers and sisters. And I am told by family members, I never met my grandfather. But I am told for the last 5 to 10 years of his life, he lived in I don't know if you're familiar with this, Kyle, or if your viewers are, but there's a style of shotgun house that's called a camelback, and it's basically a short shotgun house. And then there's an upstairs on the back half of that.
Yeah, Germantown in Louisville has them. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was down in the west end of Louisville, and I am told that for the last 5 to 7 years ish of his life, he lived upstairs in the back of that house and rarely came out. Family members that did know him said that he was just not right. It's the only way that I know how to share that without talking crazy like my family, like things that we don't necessarily want to stigmatize and hurt, right? And so I'll fast forward for you that what I know about my mother. So my mother passed away when I was 14. She got cancer, and this is important for a couple of things, for a couple of reasons. But what I do know about my mom is, so there was a psychiatric mental health hospital in Louisville that was around for a very long time. It was called Our Lady of Peace.
Olop, yeah. So that place is that no longer Olop?
It's there. It's a different name. But for
All
the
right.
longest time, Olop. And I know that my mother took a couple of vacations at Olop when I was a kid. And for those that maybe can't see me on camera, those were air quotes. Vacations. And look, again, I was young when she passed away, but this much I do know because my siblings were pretty clear with me about this, is that my mother suffered from depression. And we all know that mental health challenges, mental health is definitely hereditary, but it's also definitely learned behavior as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I know enough, I've worked enough in the field to know that there's science behind that. And although I'm not a therapist, I am not a mental health professional. As far as that is concerned, all of my work in the mental health field and addiction recovery field has been on the business side of things, not in the programming and therapy side of things. And so the importance here is that I have a deep family history of this. I have a cousin right now that was just convicted of this is harsh, but violently ending both of his parents' lives. And this runs very, very deep in my family, Kyle. And so what happened is around this time of age 14, as a lot of us are, we are really kind of searching for ourselves. And I want to go back to this being a only child, not really fitting in. There's a saying out there that talks about not feeling comfortable inside your own skin. And that really resonates with me, Kyle, because even today, at 55 years old, after years and years of good work that has really helped me for the most part get through most of my day-to-day challenges, I still feel that way sometimes.
I think we all do, and it's okay to feel that way sometimes.
Absolutely,
it is A-okay.
In fact, I have a couple of friends of mine that remind me that if I always felt comfortable in my own skin, there would be no reason for me to grow and improve and keep looking down the road to get better, right?
Yeah.
And so, anyway, Kyle, so I share all of this really is that I got my first resentment when my mother passed away. I was angry at God. I was angry at the doctors. I was angry at everybody. And for the first time, I had something to put some real energy into, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was about this time that I was beginning to experiment with drugs and alcohol. My father was an alcoholic. I can say he was because he claimed that he was an alcoholic. Very, very high functioning, very mentally sound, comes from a long line of very successful people. But he drank a lot. And so I kind of learned that behavior through my familial ties. But what happened for me is that I began to find an escape. Kyle, I began to find something that would calm the noise down. And also during this time, it was actually opening doors for me because I was able to get involved with people that I looked up to, the cool kids. You know what I mean? And suddenly the girls weren't so hard to talk to anymore. And all of those things that were inside of me that made me feel less than, that didn't make me feel whole, I just didn't feel complete. That activity and that behavior really kind of made that come to life for me. And
Mhm.
and I got really comfortable with that for a while. The problem is that I stopped growing and I stopped maturing emotionally at about this time. Primarily because I now know that through all self-medicating myself
Mhm.
is what I was doing. I was altering the ability for me to naturally grow and mature and feel emotion, deal with emotion. And so the next thing I know, I'm going to kind of fast forward us and take us through some things. So the next thing I know is that I'm in my mid 20s. I am highly dysfunctional, educated. I've been afforded every luxury possible. I mean, my life wasn't bad. It was just that I didn't fit into it, right? And
Mhm.
I found myself out west in Colorado, and I'm a big outdoors person, hence being out here in the woods in my cabin and things. And I had gone out there to kind of chase skiing and mountain climbing and mountain biking and just be outdoors. And um and this is kind of like that invisible line. They talk about crossing an invisible line. And this is that embarkation that I had on this invisible line. Is so the first winter that I lived out there, I got out on the mountain probably 180, 170 days, something like that, to ski. And the second winter I was there, I bet I didn't get out 75 times.
Hmm.
I could ski for free. Okay. The third winter I was there, I could probably count on both of my hands the number of times that I got out of the mountain. It was all I could do to sometimes work and and just basically um drive myself away from more people and more people. And then
Hmm.
and I ended up just very lost and very confused because I continued to alienate myself from my family, from people that loved me, my friends. And meanwhile, all around me, Kyle, people are like, Doug, what's wrong with you? Like, you're, for the most part, you're normal and you're a good guy, but then you do these things and then you like go away. And I'm like, I don't know, I feel fine, leave me alone. Right.
Yeah.
But I, deep down inside of me, I knew something wasn't quite right. I didn't know what it was. And uh um I moved back to Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm from, and um, uh, a divorce followed not too long after that, and during that time I had a daughter, and um, there was a piece of me that thought that this daughter would make me grow up, or would make me more responsible,
Hmm.
or Um, uh, but what it did is just the opposite. I think I was scared. I didn't know what to do, and so I just acted out more.
See,
And
you say that, but it's when I had my son, or when I found out I was a father, uh, that was my turning point to me growing up.
oh, okay,
Yeah, it was.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, it was scary to find out, hey, you're a father, but it was also, yeah, totally different. Like, I did not digress at all. But life has a funny way of doing that. Some people can't handle it. Some people can. You know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what happened with me. I mean, I can't put that sentinel event as like the cause or
Yeah.
whatever. All I know is that I just became more and more scared and more scared. And I spent an awful lot of my 30s being very, very frightened. I was afraid of myself, Kyle. I was afraid of others. I started becoming paranoid.
Yeah, I went through that stage when I was dealing with living in Louisville, dealing with addiction. I was afraid to go outside because I was afraid that everybody was talking about me, and that when people looked at me, that they were talking about me,
Yeah. Hey, look, man. And I'm going to kind of draw some comparisons as we move forward here, but I was certain of it.
Yeah.
Like I was actually hearing it, and and so here's the thing: is that through a lot of self work and a lot of help from others that are out there, I have gotten in touch with my instincts. And I have learned, now this is Doug's truth, okay? Again, I'm not a therapist, I'm not, a social worker, I'm not a psychologist. This is Doug's truth that he has learned from others that have learned this about themselves. Is that I have these instincts that are what cause my feelings and then lead to my thinking. So I have the instincts, have these feelings that come out of that, and then that leads to my thinking, and then following my thinking, Kyle, comes my actions. All right. And there's this natural progression, and I share this a lot when I'm working. I was just teaching a class to a couple hundred people on yesterday afternoon at 3:00, and there's this process that happens. It was shown to me. I don't know where it came from. It's not Doug original. It was something that was passed down to me, but it's this natural progression of things that happen in our lives day in and day out. It happens all day, every day, and we're often not aware of it. But first thing is that we gather information. We as humans are constantly gathering information. There is stimuli, there is activity, there are things that are coming at us all day long. And then at certain points with this information, we begin to be faced with some decisions. I need to do X. And then we take a decision, and until we actually take action, it just stays up here in our mind, and it's just decisions and information, right? But once I put action to something, every single time, no matter what, I put action to something, there is a result that comes out of that, right? And then when I repeat that cycle over and over and over and over again, I begin to build what they call trust, because I get a result a certain amount of times, and then that grows into faith.
Yeah.
And so I share all of that because I feel uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable in my own skin. So go back to the earlier stories about, well, you know what? I might take a substance. Now I feel better. I feel uncomfortable. I take a substance. Now I feel better. And then I begin to have faith and trust in that.
Yeah.
So why that's so important for me right now is, in sharing all of this, is that that's exactly how it happens with my feelings and my emotions, is that I will feel a certain way and I will have this emotion. And then if I do an action or take an action that doesn't include numbing it, pushing it away, whatever, then I can slowly start to work through them. Now, this is just me. This is just my truth. It doesn't work this way for everyone. I want to be clear about that, right? And And so there's this whole process that comes along with that. So as I grew and learned and understood that, well, I had a doctor friend of mine who used to describe me. He would say, "Doug, you're just a quart low." Good old country guy, and that was just how he, that's just how he talked. He's like, "Doug, you're a quart low," and he's like, "That's okay." He's like, "We just got to add more oil," and so anyway, so what happened for me is that I due to my addiction, but it was more than addiction. I started these series of bouncing in and out of mental health facilities. Okay. And at one point, I was in a state hospital and they diagnosed me, I think, was either Axis 2 or Axis 3 depression. They said that I was borderline manic, and I was. I don't know how much of that was due to just my natural state, just who I am as an individual, and how much of that was because of the years of drug and alcohol abuse that had just kind of messed up my chemistry, but also my ability to emotionally mature and grow and deal with things. And I'm certain that it's a combination of both. And I ended up homeless, Kyle. And I'm not talking about pretend homeless, where you're sleeping on mom's couch.
No, that's called a house over your head. You're just sleeping on mom's couch.
Yeah, I call that pretend homeless. Although I did have some guys that really, once I became teachable, that started telling me some truths about myself, and they say, if your name ain't on a lease, or your name ain't on a deed, you're homeless, homie. And so but I digress. That I moved in underneath a bridge in downtown Louisville. And I got to tell you, that wasn't on my bingo card. Let me just say, went to college, went to private schools all the way through being grown up, come from, as I said, my father's side of the family, very affluent. When I told my sister this, by the way, about 4 or 5 years down the road afterwards, she cried. She just cried, and she said, like, "Doug, why? Like, why were, like, I mean, didn't you know you could come and stay with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I knew I could."
You didn't want to be a burden.
Well, not only did I not want to be a burden, but I also, I knew that she would have rules and she would have expectations, and I wasn't prepared for any of that either. But mostly, Kyle, I was ashamed. I was ashamed. In my mind, I had failed. Ultimately. And I'm not talking about got an F on a test. I had failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go back to this, gather information, make some decisions, and take some actions. You see, I had failed and done so badly for so long that I trusted that about myself. I trusted that I was a failure. I trusted that I was never going to be any good. I trusted that that's who I was. And I got real comfortable underneath that bridge, because I just believed that that's what I was. And you know what? I am that. I don't live under that bridge today, obviously. But I am. And you know what? It's like one of the things that I am most proud of in my life. In fact, it's a running joke between me and my wife. I've since had my my record expunged years ago. Not expunged, but like went and had. I guess it is expunged. It's not pardoned. If you get pardoned, it all gets like erased. But I went through like the process to get. And I mean, I don't have anything egregious on there, but still, I wanted to have some things cleaned up. And I guess at the time when I was doing it, like if you have like a couple of charges that are within a certain amount of time of each other, like they can't like expunge them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the attorney called me and he's like, we got this done. We got this done. We got that done. It's all good. Everything's good. And he's like, but I got some bad news. And I was like, what's that? And he says, there's one charge on here that I was really hoping to get rid of for you that they just won't let go. And I was like, yeah, which one is that? And he goes, menacing. I was like, oh, hell, I got to keep that. I got to keep that, man. Like I own that. I am literally I am a menace to society.
You're a menace to society, yeah.
Yes, I am. And I'm so proud of that. But anyway, I joke and jest, although a little, not a bunch. But so here's the thing is that I was what they call bankrupt. Okay. I had lost all hope. I mean, all hope. I knew I was never going to be a father. I was never going to be a husband again. I was never going to have a home or anybody that really cared about me, or I was never going to care about anybody. And I got real comfortable underneath that bridge. I don't know how many of these viewers out here have been living in the heat wave that we've had in the Midwest here the last couple of days. But I want to tell you that late July and August rolled by in this time period, and this was in 2007. And we had a heat wave that was unprecedented that summer. We had about 10 or 12 days in a row where it was like 105 degrees, and I'm up underneath this bridge and just doing whatever it is that I could to get by. And Kyle, I was bumming change in Louisville, Kentucky, up in the Highlands, and I want to paint this picture very clearly. Is that I hadn't showered except for maybe getting in like a fountain or something, for 3 or 4 weeks. I hadn't changed clothes, and I was sitting in the Highlands, and for those that don't know, it's a pretty decent little side of Louisville, and very eclectic. I love it. Very random.
Well, I don't think it's so random now. I think it's way too commercialized now.
Well, a bit, but
back in the day, it was very eclectic and very random. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day it was.
It was a great little stomping grounds, especially for those who were drug addicts and alcoholics.
Look, man. Yeah, I went through every phase as a growing up and being raised in the Highlands. I was a hippie. I was a skate punk. I was all of it, brother. Let me tell you. Again, never comfortable inside my own skin. Yeah. Right? I just got in where I could fit in.
Because you were still looking for your identity, and that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to put it, Kyle. And so what happened for me, man, is that I have no idea what happened for me. I remember like this guy pulls over, and I'm sitting on this old park bench, and this guy pulls over, and I get up, and I'm like, hey, man, and he's in his car, really nice car. I think it was a Lexus or something like that. And I'm like, and he's like, hey, where you going? You need a ride? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah. I'm going to reel him in.
All right. Rewind. Haven't showered in a month. Haven't changed clothes. And I get in this dude's car and he's like, "Where are you going?" And I have no idea why. But I looked at this guy and I said, "I'm going to 10th and Market." And at 10th and Market was the Healing Place in Louisville. And it was a drug and alcohol treatment center. And this was before Medicaid expansion and before, I mean, this was a homeless shelter that had a program in it, and anybody could come and you could stay.
And it's still down there to this day, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. And so dude looks at me and he's like, "Oh, no. He's like, "I was heading out towards the East End." For those of you that don't know, I'm heading out to the rich section of town. Dude, come on. Seriously? And I just looked at this guy and I was like, "Hey man, I'm homeless. And I've got issues, and those folks down there can help me with that." And he looked at me and he said, "That's where we're going." Now, I need to tell you this because we drove right by that bridge that I was staying under. And for about a week during this heat wave, my whole plan every night was to walk from the Highlands to this bridge. I was going to grab my bag. This bag was very important to me. It was a backpack that I'd hiked with, that I'd traveled with, been out of the country, whatever. And in this bag, it was all I had left in the world. It was the only thing that I had left in the world. And my plan for a week or so was to go by that bridge, get this bag, and walk down to the Healing Place. The problem is that every time I got to that bridge, my feet hurt too much, or I was in too much pain, or there was something going on underneath that bridge that I wanted to be a part of. But I just never made it. And you know what? We drove right past that bridge and went down to that detox unit on August the 11th of 2007. And my life forever changed from those moments. And I went across the street out of the detox unit into the homeless shelter that had a drug and alcohol recovery program. It's a social model recovery program, which is basically peer-to-peer. So the folks that have completed the program are the ones that facilitate the classes. They're the ones that facilitate the entire program. There's no counselors. There's no paid professional staff. It is all just people helping people that have walked a mile in your shoes.
And literally walked a mile, because I went there. I went through there a little bit, and you had to trudge. Right? So you had to go to a meeting. So they had a meeting there on the campus, but then a bunch of guys as a group, you would walk or trudge to your next meeting, and but I mean, it's one of those, like Doug says, if you let it change your life, and you want it to change your life, and you want to get better, it's one of those places where it will, and it will help you grow and mature into the person that you're supposed to be. So
I think I think this was like the junction of a lot of things that happened for me. And one is that I was sufficiently hopeless, and I was sufficiently humble. I was teachable, and I was desperate. And I skipped the parts where I tried to kill myself twice. I woke up in a hospital one time with tubes running everywhere, mad, all of that. Right. But I'm talking about a different kind of desperate, and I was just desperate to feel differently, and nothing was making me feel different anymore. And there were some men that were once exactly where I was that gave upon themselves to show me what they did, and I made a connection with a higher power, something that's greater than me. For the first time, I felt a part of something in a very, very long time. I felt connected. People cared about me. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of share. So I'm going to fast forward for you a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. So I completed that program. It was a long-term residential program that never cost me or my family a dime. And I was in the program itself for about 8 months. And then I told you it was a peer-to-peer thing. I stayed on after completing the program and was a peer mentor, which meant that I was then turning around and delivering the same message and showing the same way to others that were coming behind me. And I got to tell you that for the first time in my life, I felt useful. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was needed. And Kyle, I left after that. So you make back then you made a 3-month commitment to do that. I did that. I left, and I had people in my life that hadn't completely given up on me, and I moved in with this friend of mine. She let me rent a room. It was not romantic or anything like that. She just let me rent a room, and I had an old business partner that came to me with a business idea, and I said, yes, let's do it. And we opened up a business, and I started a food manufacturing company. It grew out of that. And
I remember that. That was on Baxter Avenue.
we had a building on Baxter Avenue. That's where the offices were. We had a manufacturing plant, a partnership where we partnered with a manufacturer, one in Louisville, and then we ended up in Burlington, Kentucky, up here in your neck of the woods, which is right there by Florence. Anyway, I sold and closed some of that business. We closed some of that business. We sold off the other half, and they were. Long story short is I went to work for the Healing Place, which is the place that saved my life. And they were trying to raise money and grow the business so that they could serve more people. And this was at the height. So this was at 2013, 2014. And this was at the height of the opioid pandemic that was going on in Louisville and really basically all over the country, but definitely like really gutting Appalachia and the central part of our country. And they had a detox unit that had 25 beds. They were turning 30 to 40 people a day away, just that they just couldn't get in. And we built a $32 million facility. It's a nonprofit, and raised $32 million. We built this facility. We had capacity for 200 men. There are about 600 beds down there now in that building. And I became involved in the business of recovery and nonprofit, and learned, because I've always been in business my whole life. And I learned basically how to fundraise. And I learned how to take what I used to have as like sales experience and managing that kind of thing, and turn that into that. And so meanwhile, back at the ranch, Kyle, I'd never stopped like being a peer mentor.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were still mentoring those guys,
Yeah.
because even though it's quite funny because 2007, that's when I first got sober, but off of drugs and
Yeah.
alcohol, which but it's really weird because like during that time, I would see you at gathering places,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's one of those things where I was like, all right, that guy right there has something special, and at that time I was just a lonely lost soul just beginning my journey. But yeah, it's amazing how life has a way of changing if we let it help us.
Yeah, exactly. If we let it. And so I want to tell you what that it is. So during this time, I had the opportunity to every other Friday, I would come in to work, and I would come in an hour early, and I would sit down with one of my most important mentors, Jay Davidson, who was the founder of the Healing Place. And we would, for an hour, we discuss. So there's like 17 critical elements to the Healing Place program, and we would take one critical element, we would talk through it. I never knew exactly really where the conversations were going, but this man for 2 or 3 years, and I'm going to get emotional, for 2 or 3 years, just basically like took an hour every other Friday and we just talked about humanity, about spirituality, about mental health. And this guy is a master's in social work and has a psychology degree and all of that. But he also knows how to practically apply it so that people can get in their life. And so Jay taught me several things. And one of the things Jay taught me was what happened to me at the Healing Place. He taught me the design of that entire program and what it does and what its intention is. And the first thing, and the first monumental thing that happens is that you are given and greeted with unconditional love. Now, Kyle, I want to share with you that Jay was very clear to me that this is not the unconditional love that we first hear when we hear that. When we first hear the words unconditional love, we think of things like, well, like a mother.
Yeah.
Like unconditionally loves a child. I know mine unconditionally loved me, right? And my father too, right? But until the conditions became too much. And I don't think the love ever went away, but they didn't have to like me. And but so this unconditional love that Jay taught me about, and I think if there's anything that folks here, what I have to say here is that I would like, this is the hit, this is the cold piece, is that something has happened inside of me, Kyle, that is so profound and so deep and so effective that I want that for you, brother. I want that for you so badly that it's unconditional. It's unconditional. And how I want that change to be there for you. That means that I no longer give a crap about your feelings. I'm going to tell you the truth. No matter how bad it hurts, no matter how bad it is. And I'm going to tell you that I love you, and I'm going to do things for you, and it's going to feel like I'm picking on you, or it's going to feel like, but it's because I'm going to do things like hold you accountable.
Yeah, and that it's funny because guys like you and Keith Buckler and even Brent
Yeah.
Thurman and even the other Brent who rode motorcycles with Keith. Those guys, the straight shooters, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about growing up, is that we all need those people in our lives to hold us accountable for different things in our lives.
Yeah, but see, here's where the secret sauce is, though, is that's not going to work if you're my teacher, or
That's true.
you're a police officer, or
Yeah.
you're my dad. But if you can properly convince me that you understand me, that you are me, you have not only felt, but you have lived what I've lived, suddenly I can be receptive to your unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. It's love. It's absolute love. There's a term out there where they say that we love you to life. And so during this time with Jay Davidson, I'm learning lots and lots of things about us as a human race from Jay. And I'm learning about who we are and what we are and the things that make us tick. And I'm learning about true altruism. I'm learning about and I'm talking about the altruism that means that I'm going to do for others with zero expectation. That means I don't expect anything back for me. And I honestly don't expect anything for you. I'm just going to do it because I know it's what I should be doing. And through doing that, Kyle, what happens is, so I'm going to go back. I told you I was going to go back and forth. I want to go back to this information that Doug gathered for most of his life. Doug's not good enough. Kyle, I have the lowest self-esteem that anyone could possibly imagine. I still have that today. And, it's funny. I saw the Facebook thing and the nice comment that you made about me and being helpful. I don't believe that.
Of course not.
I don't believe that about me. Right. And so, I mean, I'm not, so narcissistic that I don't appreciate and understand it and know
it's very hard.
And know that it is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. But I still have a really hard time, effectively, believing that. And so, so that's an instinct.
Yeah.
That's an instinct that drives my feelings, that then drives my thinking, that then drives my actions. Right. And so here's the magic sauce with this unconditional love, with this authentic and real altruism. I chip away slowly at that worthlessness, at that uselessness, at that hopelessness. And magically, it's not ego that is being filled. It's just filling that void, one little brick at a time. And that is what Jay Davidson tells me is the truest and purest, highest function of society, or a peer-to-peer social model of recovery. And we can apply this, Kyle, to more than addiction.
Mm-hmm. We
can apply it to a lot of things. And so I have spent the last 18 years of my life, whether conscious of this prior to receiving this education from this man starting 8 or 9 years ago, whether conscious or not, I have been applying this formula. Okay. And slowly, I have gotten better. I am happy to report to you today that I am absolutely comfortable inside my own skin. However, something can happen in a split second, and I will doubt myself. I will doubt myself. I will doubt that I'm okay. I will doubt that I'm any good. It happened to me yesterday. I was imagine this, man. They had me speaking to 17 university presidents at a conference for this anyway, and I'm up there and I'm teaching them, and the room is dry. I'm not getting a lot of reaction and response, and I'm like, I walk out of there, dude, and I'm just like, dude, I suck.
Yeah.
Like I'm out of my league. I don't belong there. I mean, this is real shit to me, man. I'm sorry about cussing, but this is real to me.
No, you're good.
Like this is real to me. Like I'm really feeling that way. And I got to tell you something, dude. So like, for those of you that know, like within 30 minutes, I had left there and I'd gone to a coffee shop and I opened up my phone. I had 2 notifications for LinkedIn. 2 of those presidents within 30 minutes had sent me a LinkedIn request. And then I had gotten by this morning, I had 3 emails from different presidents saying, hey, thank you for this part of what you said. Dude, it wasn't real. It was all up here. It was all up here. So back to that gathering information. See, I now know that that's not true. I didn't know it yesterday morning at 10:30 when I left that conference. And I didn't need those people to send me those messages and things to tell me that. What I had to do is I had to go back to the other information that I've been given and be like, that's not real. You're really okay. It doesn't matter what they think of you. All of that stuff that, that we tell. And you know what? Since I haven't been suppressing that process with denial, drugs, avoidance, just not even dealing with it, just pushing it away, since I've actually had the courage and enough people that loved me unconditionally, that pushed me and forced me into knowing that I have a problem with my self-esteem, knowing that it's no one else's responsibility to fix that because they can't. You see, that's the thing is that I'm not perfect today, Kyle. I am so far from being perfect.
Well, yeah. Well, we know that because you like Kentucky basketball.
Well, yeah. Well. We do have more
not
wins
perfect
than anybody else, so that's pretty damn perfect.
It's progress, not perfection.
Yeah. But but seriously, man, I'm comfortable today in my own skin. I'm starting to question why we don't have the air conditioning on the first floor and just the second floor. But it's probably because I'm hyped, from sharing all of this. But here's the thing: is that what I have learned is being imperfect, not being okay, is okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned is that I don't have to be anybody else's version of me. I don't even have to be the made up version of me that I think I need to be. I just need to be still. And when I get stuck or when I'm having a hard time, I just need to be still and know that this too shall pass. And then I look for truth. And I've got enough people in my life today through a support group that can pull up on me and help me through any problem that I'm having. And, slowly but surely, 18 years later, that chemistry, that brain function, I'm starting to trust again. I'm starting to trust again. And not every day, but today I trust, Kyle. And so what I do with that, because I know you wanted to hear a little bit more about that. So I was vice president of the Healing Place for quite some time. And I helped that organization achieve some financial stability. I don't know where they are with all of that today. We opened up 3 new healing places in my tenure there, added a total of about, in my tenure at the Healing Place, we went from 400 people into a bed to counting the satellite service in Wilmington, North Carolina. There's over 1,200 people in a bed.
And does that also include the women's facility? Because there is a women's facility.
There is a women's facility.
In
They've got about
well.
180, 190 beds, and there's about 600 beds on the men's campus. We put 200 beds down in Wilmington, North Carolina. We've expanded into some other buildings. And so in my tenure at the Healing Place, I was blessed to be a part of that kind of growth. And I don't take credit for any of that. I'm just really proud and honored to be a part of 800 new beds for people that really don't have a choice for anything else in their lives, and they can go and have the same opportunity that I had. And so with this gift that I've been given and how to fundraise, I've helped 2 nonprofits raise, money to open up new facilities. The most recent one is in Jeffersonville, Indiana. It's called the Recovery Complex, and it's a community center focused on people that are in 12-step programs that is unlike anything you've ever seen before. It's got a full-service restaurant in it, Kyle. It's got a lounge that has TVs, just like you would in a in a sports bar.
Yeah, I saw some of the pictures that you were posting on Facebook.
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing, because there for the longest time, that side of the river didn't have anything. They had their meeting places.
Yeah,
but they didn't have anything like that. Those guys who wanted to recover had to come to Louisville.
Well, not only that, but now we've flipped the script on it, because now we've got a facility over there that everybody's going to want to come the other way now for, because there's nothing like it. I mean, there is nothing like this place that I've ever seen in my 18 years. And so that's really cool. And I had nothing to do with the design of that. I just came in at the end and they were like, hey, we need some help and this is what we want. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. And so I've been able to be a part of that. There was another club in Louisville, one of the oldest token clubs that was in some financial trouble. We were able to help them. And
would that be the West End?
No, that's the Token 3 Club.
That was
the
one that was fun to go to. That's the one where, I remember you were preached at. Okay, it was,
Oh, you talking about West End Token?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Oh my God.
Because that's where all the older. I'm talking like older, like Yeah, it was, and it was one of those things where, like,
Thunder.
if you were
Thunder
dealing
over
with,
Louisville.
yeah, so if you were,
Thunder over
yeah,
Louisville.
if you were dealing with addiction or any type of thing, you needed to go to the West End Token Club because these older guys and even the women there would humble you, okay? Because it was
raw and uncut.
yes.
I needed it. I
Yeah.
so needed it. And then and also a little known thing about me, I don't really kind of broadcast it, but I serve on a for-profit board for a very rapidly growing for-profit recovery company that's in three towns in Kentucky, or 3 parts of Kentucky, and getting ready to open a facility. I need to be quiet about it because I got a buddy of mine that's at the cabin with me.
Yeah.
But they're getting ready to open a facility in Evansville, Indiana.
Well,
and,
we'll forgive you. We'll forgive you for working for a for-profit organization.
I wasn't supposed to talk about, but good enough. Good to know. He's if you can, I can promise you, if he's in the holler with me, it'll stay in the holler.
Yeah.
But anyway, and so I've been able to like take that business acumen that I have and help this individual whom now has, I think tonight has probably 400 people in a bed, and my wife is a utilization review nurse now, and she's reviewing mental health charts probably as we speak to make sure that the clinicians and doctors and nurses are putting all the documentation in right, so that
and because we talked about this last night.
Yeah,
our wives kind of share that common bond.
Yeah, they do. They do. And so, I've been able to. I've been really like now that and I don't ever really like this is a new thing for me. I've never been asked to like talk about specifically about what I've done with the gift that I've been given, like outside of like helping another suffering alcoholic. Let me just say that. And it feels a little weird to be kind of like talking about it like that, but there's also, like I'm also kind of proud of it, but ultimately I'm just grateful, Kyle. I'm just grateful that it's something allowed me to get underneath that bridge and get real comfortable so that I could be the person that I am today and carry a torch that I'll never be able to hold, and have the opportunity to, in one moment, sit down at a table and become intimately with just one individual and share how my life changed and try to help them see how theirs can. And then have the unique opportunity to turn right around and help hundreds, thousands, and not ever even meet them.
It takes one. All it takes is one person, sir.
But not ever even know them. Just be the puppet behind the wheels, man.
Yep.
Driving the business and driving this and doing that.
And the beautiful thing is,
unique opportunity is
you're not supposed to know them.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to know them. The only person that you're supposed to know, well, actually two, is yourself and the person that you put your trust in and that you put your faith in, which is your higher power.
So, man, I don't know if I can add anything else to this, man. I don't know, unless you've got questions for me. Or
I can tell you right now that it's powerful what you're doing and what you have done. And I'm not tooting your horn because you won't believe it. You won't believe it anyway.
I won't.
But it's a powerful thing, man. and like you said, you were willing enough to have that guy drop you off at the healing place.
Yep.
You never stepped back under that bridge, and I know tons of people who've been under that bridge, who've actually helped other people under that bridge, Calvin, all right?
Yep. I don't know.
And other guys and girls. The thing is, we don't, like even with this podcast, with me doing this podcast, had I not made some changes in my life to where I felt like that not only my story but other people's stories need to be heard, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this on a Friday night, at 9:00.
I
So
absolutely would not.
it's all.
I don't even know why I'm here right now.
It's your higher power, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
That's because you said yes, and your higher power said, "Okay, Doug, I'm taking the steering wheel.
Yeah.
I'm going to drive this, right? Whether or not you want me to or not,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing what can happen in our lives if we wanted to. Yes, there are daily struggles. Everybody. If you don't struggle on a daily with something in your life, then something is wrong.
Yeah.
But
or you're just not paying attention.
yeah, like today, I knew when I woke up and I sat down in my chair in the living room and I watched a Mr. Beast video that made me cry. Like I don't know, Fridays whenever I do my podcast on Fridays, those are usually my hardest days emotionally, and today just happened to be that day to where I've been emotional all day long, and then, with what I shared earlier about Jason and his daughter, there's people in your lives that come into your lives that touch you and help you, and you may not know it, and they may not know it, but they're those people, and I'm grateful to have those people. I'm grateful to have guys like you, who I should reach out to more, because we all need that. We all need those people in our lives that we can turn to and talk about whatever it is, and it doesn't matter, big or small. And I'm telling this to anybody that's watching it now, is that I don't care what it is, big or small, if you just want to shoot this shit, I'm here. I'm a phone call away. I'm a text message away. I'm a Facebook message away. We don't need to go through our lives alone. Nobody needs to go through their lives alone. But what you're doing is, even though sometimes you feel like you're alone, you're not, and you're damn sure not forgetting it, because we know what happens when you forget it. You're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you coming on and being real and being open and being honest and sharing. Because that's what it takes. It takes one person sharing hope and positive energy, shape, to help one person. So I thank you. I thank you a lot.
Oh, well, I appreciate you. It's just a great honor and privilege. It's a privilege, and I appreciate you, Kyle. I think back about the stoop.
Yeah, the stoop on a derby night in the Highlands.
We had some fun there, didn't we?
Watching all the drunk people.
Oh my word! Yeah, the stoop on Derby night. Wow. Yeah. I'll have to tell Lisa. I'll have to tell her. Hey, the stoop came up on Derby night. But I appreciate you. I really, I follow a lot of. I'm a big fan of social media. My social media is just a big joke to me, and I'm usually just trying to just be fun on there. I don't take any of it seriously. But the thing that I do really appreciate the most about social media is that, I get to stay current, and I get to see what my friends are doing, and I get to see what folks are doing. And even though there may not be direct engagement, I appreciate just the consistency of, keeping up with Kyle and the beard, which has its own, like, it's got its own vibe, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, and of course, I grew up a Redlegs fan, so we at least get that. If I'm as a UK fan, I can at least get that. I guess.
Now you just need to go here, all right? The great state, all right? The best city, all right? Like, I mean, for real, like, we all have, and I say this in a light battering way, Louisville, Kentucky, because I'm not from Kentucky. I'm from Tennessee.
Yeah.
But Louisville, Kentucky helped me grow up. That's where I started my grow up phase, but and I'm not in AA. I practice some of those things, but I'm sure you've seen I'm a casual drinker, but I can do that because I don't let it overtake my life. I don't let it run my life, and hell, I barely even do it. Like, I have a collection of bourbon and gin and vodka that have more dust on it than my clothing at times, But
look, let me stop you right there. Look, I know a couple of things about alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And that, sir, is alcohol abuse.
Oh yeah.
You're letting dust hit a bottle.
It's because it's not being drank.
that's alcohol abuse, my friend.
Yeah, you know what though? It's funny. Like I even in my bearding journeys, when I first started out my bearding journey, just like you, with hanging out with the wrong crowds, I was hanging out with the party beard people. I would go to these beard competitions, and I would get drunk, and I'm talking I would get sloshed. But now, I go to these beard competitions, and I don't get that way because I'm having fun hanging out with my friends, smoking the cigars or just in general talking.
Yeah.
Because it's not being an alcoholic, ladies and gentlemen, as much as it seems like it would be fun, it is not fun. All right?
No, it's not. I don't mean to make jokes about alcohol abuse.
Yeah. But man, I thank you for coming on, Doug.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
And thank you very much. I hope that everyone has a good rest of their evening. And I echo what Kyle says. I preferred to do it alone. And I know what that feels like. But I'm just going to tell you that once you stop doing it alone, it gets easier to not do it alone. And what I know to be fact, at least for this guy, is that it takes others. Because, I'm going to end with my favorite quote. My favorite quote of the week. Somebody gave this to me the other day in class, and then I'm going to say this, and then I am going to hang up because it's the last word that I've got. Is that so if I run around up here in my mind unsupervised, I will turn a misdemeanor into a felony real quick.
There you go. Well,
real quick.
Thank you, sir.
Quick. And that's being all alone. That's what happens when I stay all alone.
I appreciate you. I really do.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you for having me on. Bless you and bless everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick you to the back. I'll be with you here shortly.
Okay.
All right, that is it, everybody. That's the show. I hope you've all had a enjoyable night with the show. Again, please keep Jason and Amy in your thoughts and in your prayers. As Olivia leaves for California tomorrow for a much needed time of recovery and some therapy. And I say this every week, and I mean it. If you're struggling out there with anything, whether it be addiction, thoughts of suicide, depression, whatever it may be, and you don't feel like that you're enough, reach out and talk to somebody, and if you call or text somebody and they don't respond, call and text somebody else, but don't give up because you're worth it. All right. Have a great night, everybody. For those who are going to Worlds, I'll see you in Worlds.